Hello and welcome to this Enterprise Vault 11 What's New presentation on PST Migration Enhancements. After completing this module, you will be able to describe the enhancements to PST Migration in EV11, including the filtering, save results, new column sorting, dashboard views and reporting. You'll also be able to describe how the PST Password Override feature works and how to enable it. We'll also take a look at how to troubleshoot the new PST migration features. This slide summarizes the areas in which we've made improvements to the PST migration toolset in the last EV10.04 and EV11 releases. Starting from the left hand side, we've made it easier for you to tell EV where the PST files are by introducing a host of new options for PST search or manual entry. Being able to identify, sort and group PSTs are very important, especially if you found thousands of PSTs on your network. And to address this requirement, we've introduced filtering, save results and a number of dashboard and reporting enhancements. Correctly associating the PST file with the user is very important, and you may also want to assign a priority to specific users. Migrating the actual PST file at the end of the process can also be a challenge, and we hope to make this easier with the option to override password protected PSTs. Finally, an essential and often understated component of a PST migration is the ability to monitor and report on all of the above tasks. In this presentation, we're going to take a look at some of the improvements we made in all those different areas. So in EV11, we've added new functionality, but we're also building on what we introduced in EV10.04. And a quick reminder what we found in 10.04, the client-driven process whereby clients can actually donate PST files from their Outlook profile. We've also introduced some new features around the discovery of PST files, making it much easier to manually add items, to use import from a CSV file, and also PowerShell support. We've also introduced a feature where you can prioritize PST files. So if it's a VIP user, you may want to choose a critical migration priority to make sure that person gets migrated first. And we've also introduced some enhanced end user email notifications. So PST migration enhancements in EV11 include the scalability improvements to the Vault admin console to handle those large customer environments, dashboard and reporting enhancements, administration enhancements for client-driven PST migrations, and also the option to override the password protection of a PST file. So let's take a look at the scalability enhancements. First, we're going to look at filtering. So filtering in this context really only means to apply a rule based on a certain set of values, attributes and operators to dynamically restrict the viewing of objects to only those which match the filter rules. So really only narrowing it down to the items that you're interested in. If you've got thousands of PSTs, you only want to see the 100 PSTs or the 5 PSTs that you're interested in, you can apply a filter. And the aim of this feature is to make the Vault admin console more scalable when dealing with large numbers of items, so that includes files, computers and mailboxes. And the feature also allows the administrator to group items in such a way to exercise better control over those files, computers or mailboxes, and restrict it only to those relevant to the particular task. The administrator can create, delete or modify multiple filters at each of the different nodes within the console. We also have some predefined filters already configured when you do the upgrade or new install of EV11. Administrators will also be able to edit and delete those predefined filters, and I've just got some examples here. Let's take a look at the next predefined filter. There are 4 predefined filters under Files: awaiting migration, PSTs that have failed the migration, PSTs that are currently being migrated, and PST files with no owner. So during the PST migration project, you'll be able to very quickly get an idea by looking at those 4 different filters. So a filter control is used to apply the filters to the list of files or computers or mailboxes. So as you'll see in the demo, it's very easy to configure this filter control and to add more properties to it. You can also perform actions on filters. So right-clicking on a filter will bring up the context menu applicable to that filter, and it will allow you to take an action on all of the items that are covered by that filter. Typically any action taken will be applied to the items in the filter, with the exception if there are items that cannot accept the action due to perhaps their migration status. The results of the action will be displayed on the message, and any error messages will be referred to as it was applied to as m number of n items. The same context menu are available. The same context menu options are available on the individual items by right-clicking on them in the Vault Admin console. Here's an example screenshot of the filter context. By right-clicking on one of these filters, you can apply any of those actions on the items within that filter.
Okay, so let's take a look at a demo of filtering. So in the Vault Admin console, if I go to Personal Store Management, let's take a look at setting up some filters. So if I go into Files and All Files, so if I go into All Files, and this is where when you have many thousands of PST files, filtering becomes really useful. So as an example, I'll just set up one filter. Let's take a look at if we say we're looking for files bigger than a particular size. So there's plenty of different options there. Let's say we're looking for PST files larger than 5 megabytes in size, and PST files that are ready to migrate. So let's take a look at the migration status is ready to migrate. Okay, so these are the PSTs that I know that are literally just waiting to go, so I can set those off. Perhaps this filter will help me do that quicker every day when I come in the morning. So I can then apply that filter, and what it will do is it will show you the results of the filter first, and then allow you to save that query. So I can save the filter. Let's call it 5 megabyte files ready to migrate. The nice thing about this filter is when you create it, it will automatically update. So every day when you come in, the results within that particular filter display will be dynamically updated. So I can then save that as a filter, and that then becomes a view that is potentially very useful to an administrator. On that filter, I can also apply actions. So depending on contents of that filter, you can change, for example, the migration priority to critical. Seeing that example, every PST listed under this filter would have changed with the migration priority to critical. There's plenty of other different actions you can apply. So that's filtering for files. You can also create filters for computers. So again, there's various different properties. You may only want to target a particular domain, or last scan. You can look at machines that have not been scanned for a while, so you can set up a filter for that. And we also have, as we mentioned earlier in the presentation, different predefined filters already configured. Then in mailboxes, again, same thing apply. You can create some very useful filters to help you with your migration. Let's take a look at an example of a mailbox filter. So if I want to know all users on a particular Exchange server, if I want to do my PST migration based on the Exchange server, then you can say all users on a particular server will be targeted, and you can apply that filter, and again you can save the filter.
So that was filters. Let's now take a look at saved results. So as an alternative to using filters, saved results allow the creation of static item groupings. Saved results are effectively lists that are created empty and items are explicitly added by the administrator. So filtering will cater for the vast majority of use cases. The reason for having saved results is that when there's a need to work with a small number of items for which no specific filter can be created. Items can be added to a saved result group by selecting multiple items and right-clicking on the selection. As can be seen in the example, you can select those 3 files, right-click on them and send them to a saved result. As we saw earlier in the demo of filtering, you can also use the results from a filter to store that as a saved result. So you can do your search using a filter, and any results that come back, you can push those to a saved results folder. Similar to filters, you can right click on a saved results folder and get that context menu relevant to that folder, and you can then perform any action on all those items in the saved results set.
So in this demo, let's take a look at setting up some saved results. So the easiest way to think of saved results is that they are an empty list created by the administrator to store items in for which filters cannot be used, or too complicated filters are required. So it may be that you've got 5 people that you want to put in a particular list who've been randomly selected, so there's no filter, and therefore a saved result folder would be more appropriate. So if we want to set up a new saved result folder, right click, new, let's call it pilot users. Then I can go into my files and I can manually select the 2 or 3 or 5 or 20 users that I want to add to that save result. Right click, send to save result, pilot users. So now that view, the save results view, is populated with the ones you've manually selected. You can also use a filter or the filter query to add mailboxes or computers or files to your save result. As an example, if I want to add all the users that are set to do not migrate to my save result, I can select the migration status. It's any of do not migrate. I can then apply that filter, and when I click on save, I can choose to add the results, and bear in mind this is just the one-off query. The current users that are displayed in this filter based on that query, only those users will be added to the save results folder. It's not an ongoing query that will run in the background and add users to the pilot group. It's literally just the point in time results. So I can save the results of that query as a new save result, or I can add it to an existing save result. So now if I go into my pilot users, I have the 2 do not migrate users, and I have the users that I added manually. So at this point I can, similar to filters, apply various context actions to that save result folder. For example, change the migration status. Here's a good example of where only 3 out of the 4 users were changed to critical, and the reason for that is because one of the files could not accept the action I tried to apply to it because it's already migrated, so I can't change the status of an already migrated item. Similarly, for computers, you can create a list of pilot computer users based on a query. Similarly, for mailboxes, you can also create save result folders for mailboxes. That concludes the demo of save results.
The next scalability enhancements we're going to look at is columns and sorting. Columns can now be added or removed to the Vault Admin Console to customize the view of any of the filters or save results or even the default views. You just use the Add Remove Columns feature. And there's a very long list now. All these different columns should be able to help you sort and organize things a little bit better. And sorting is allowed on all the columns, including the calculated columns, for example the number of PST files discovered. Dashboard and reporting enhancements. Several new PST dashboard views have been added to provide a snapshot of the current PST migration activity. So quite often when you've started this large project, quarter of the way, halfway through, you don't really know the exact status, how many PSTs are left, how many PSTs have failed. It's always very useful to have these dashboard views, and it will display the latest information from the database. Dashboard will be displayed for the personal store management, files, mailboxes, computers, filters, and save result nodes. Here's an example of a dashboard view on the personal store management. As you can see, it shows you the total files, the size, the progress, and then also you can drill down and actually click on some of these and they will expand and give you more detail. Is a dashboard view of the files node. So it shows you all the files, the migrated files, any of the filters you've created will also be displayed there. And a dashboard view of the computers node. And finally a dashboard view of the save results and filter folders. You can also export the dashboard results and it'll be stored in the reports folder. Let's take a look at the enhancements to client-driven PST migration administration from the Vault Admin Console. So in earlier releases of Enterprise Vault, the administrator only had very basic functionality for enabling or disabling end users for client-driven PST migrations. And this feature enhancement will give the administrator better visibility by adding additional columns to the Vault Admin Console view, such as Active Directory properties. It's very useful, all of those, to help you with your sorting and organization. And the properties can also be viewed from the context menu within the Vault Admin Console, as the example there. PST Password Protection Override. The Password Protection Override functionality will allow the administrator to ignore any password set by the user on that PST, and effectively it will overwrite that password, and this setting is enabled within the Vault Admin Console Site Properties window. Let's take a look at the architecture. So Password Protection Override is provided as an option only at the EV site level. It's not provided at the policy level. As for the policy to be applicable, the associated mailbox has to be known, and the associated mailbox will be known only if we have successfully opened the PST and take a look inside who the owner is. So on selecting the option to override PST passwords, a warning message will be displayed. In some countries, PST password protection cannot be circumvented due to strict regulations, and enabling or disabling of this option will be audited. During the PST locator task processing, the PST file is opened first using MAPI to figure out the owner based on the presence of the PST mark in the file. If the file is password protected, then opening the file will fail, and on failure, the new password override functionality is then invoked. If overriding the password succeeds, then the PST file will be opened again using MAPI, and if the PST mark is present, the mailbox or archive will be associated to that PST file. The PST file will continue to remain in the do not migrate state. The administrator will be required to verify whether the owner is correctly identified via the PST mark, and if correct, the administrator can then change the status to be ready to copy. The migrator server performs the ingestion by opening the PST file using MAPI. Here we also require the password to open the file. The password override functionality will once again be invoked if required. And prior to EV11, the PST collector task would have copied the file, and the migrator task would start migrating it, but it would fail. The administrator would then have to specify the password and manually change the state of the PST back to ready to migrate. In EV11 though, the PST will actually start migrating without requiring any admin intervention if the password override is successful. If the password cannot be determined, then the workflows remain exactly as they were prior to EV11. There will be no performance impact to the workflows as listed above, as the password override process is deterministic and does not depend on the size of the PST file. Let's take a look at some troubleshooting. General troubleshooting advice apply. The event logs, password override, enabling or disabling will be audited in the event log, and you can use dtrace to enable logging, and the PST locator, collector and migrator logs can be captured using dtrace. Module summary. In this module you were provided with an overview of the enhancements for PST migration in EV11, including filters, save results, dashboard views, and improvements to client-driven PST migration. We've also learned about the new password override option for PST files. That concludes this module. Thank you very much for listening.